But one that frustrates me not to have understood deeply before, and unfortunately, it might sound cryptic unless you've gone through that journey, I guess. But I think when everything was going amazingly well, the market was booming, etc. And a lean sensei comes to you and is like, "What is the?"
Welcome everyone to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm your host and CEO and founder of Guide to HR. I'm super excited to be talking about lean processes inside of your business and how you can grow your business through this process. And I have Catherine and Fabrice on the call with me today to talk through it. Catherine, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I think your podcast usually addresses mostly tech people, startups, and scale ups, and so on. I'm more from the industry and services initially, but this is where I learn lean extensively, and found that actually it's very much a matter of human communication, negotiation, engagement. Plus a number of tricks like just in time, calling for help, providing help, doing things to engage people that we will probably explain in this podcast. So it turned out that Fabrice and Benoit from Theodore got pretty much the same idea, and Fabrice will explain much more. And eventually we wrote a book about what they are doing, how they engage people through Lean to get a better customer satisfaction.
Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. And Fabrice, I know you're the founder of Theodore. Let us know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and CTO of Theodore. So we're an international tech consultancy, and we've been going on for almost 15 years now. But really, things changed dramatically when we adopted Agile in a very disciplined way in 2012, and this made us grow very fast because Agile allowed us to scale horizontally. And then, because we grew very fast, the question we had was, is there something like Agile that we could adopt at the whole company level to help us with the challenges of scale? And we were lucky to meet someone who told me, you know what, I had a similar experience, seeing the magic of Agile, but then realizing it was not the right solution for a large organization. And I've discovered Lean. And if you want, I can help you on a lean journey. And that was back in 10 years ago. And so we've been on a lean journey for 10 years. And this is why Catherine, who's a lean expert, got interested in our story and wrote the book. And this is why I'm here today.
Oh, great. I love it. Well, I can't wait to dive into this. So Catherine, tell us a little bit, what is lean for those that may not have heard of this before?
So it's very difficult to explain in a few words, but okay, let's start with the idea that number one, it's an obsession with customer satisfaction, because if you don't have a complete customer satisfaction, people won't come back, and you will strive all the time to collect more turnover, and you will do it at the expense of margins or prices and so on. So customer satisfaction goes through three main elements: cost, delay, and quality. And this is a very, very challenging objective when you want to be good at the three of them. Not to mention today you have to add environment and society protection, overall world society protection. And looking at Toyota, who was an amazingly growing automotive car maker, and grew from a very obscure company to the number one over the years, I started to observe that they had a different way to manage. They were obsessed with customers. A lot of people will tell you they are obsessed with customers, but they were doing things to be good with their customers. They were very good at engaging people, at developing, solving problems for their employees, so that the people were in good conditions to serve the customers. They were very good at lead time. They had a lead time obsession as well. Let's do it when we said we would do it, not whenever we can. They were obsessed by quality. So every time they had an issue, they would organize a stop of the line, which was never heard of before. they would stop the line, get help, and solve the problem here and there, which was the opposite way to the usual quality approach, which was rather final inspection at the end of the line. So we looked at that and whoops. And in the automotive industry, we could not do lean. Otherwise, we would have died.
Sure.
So I was very immersed into lean and discovered later that it would apply perfectly well to tech companies as well, as I hope we will demonstrate tonight.
Great, thank you. So let's do that. So Fabrice, when you were told, hey, maybe you want to look at lean, what was your first reaction? Because I can assume that will be a lot of CEO founders, co-founders reactions of like, oof, like I'd love to learn, like when you first heard about that, what was your first thought that ran through your mind?
But the first thought was this guy is either completely bonkers or exactly the person I was looking for. So that was really, I remember very well that moment. And then, we agreed to do a first session where he came. So when in lean, there's a lot of jargon, and so we use the word Gemba. So he came on the Gemba, did a go and see within our company, and really, in just a few questions, he was able to challenge us so well that I think he convinces very quickly that when you understand lean thinking, you've got such a rich system of models and ways of looking at the company that are so interesting and bring you so many valuable insights that I think we were lucky to meet him because he was definitely very good, and that's why we started the journey. And I would add to that along the way of the journey, we realized a few very interesting things that I would have liked to probably know to convince me faster at the time. But first is that, Agile, when you look at the history of Agile, you look at the roots of Agile, you dive deep. Scrum's origin is very much inspired by an article written by 2 Japanese professors. And when you look at these Japanese professors, you realize that they were studying actually companies that were heavily lean in Japan. So you can see that, Agile's origin is you can trace in so many different ways that a lot of the lean principles have been adopted in Agile. And of course, what is interesting to us as a larger organization is that lean comes from a large company. So you get Agile principles, but already designed for large organizations. And the other things that I discovered along the way, which I found fascinating, is that, when you look at the story, Steve Jobs actually was coached by one of the inventors of lean, somebody called Chabiron, in the 90s. And then you also discover that Jeff Bezos was taught the Toyota system in like early 2000s. So you realize there's a reason why, this Agile movement that transformed the whole tech industry is very much inspired by lean, is because they were directly connected to lean thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are some great examples. So you go, okay, I'm gonna go for it, right? That's what you decided. Yeah, well, this guy's either crazy or gonna be the guy we're looking for. You chose to go with the guy you're looking for and start implementing. What has the process been like? And ultimately, what has been the best ROI that you've seen to date by implementing it?
It's always hard to measure if you made the right decisions. But it's so. What was the journey? We started with it was mostly, lean is mostly coaching, ideally by it's a coach or a sensei, so somebody who's got deep expertise in lean. And I think we use the word sensei to kind of this idea that it's not someone who's really bringing you solution, but someone who's showing you where the problem is, and then
and raising questions. No.
Asking tough questions. Catherine is trying to pretend that it's a nice experience. No, it's a tough one, but it's of course very valuable. And then in terms of ROI, we've multiplied. The company was doing 1 million revenue in 2012. It's doing almost $100 million revenue this year.
Congratulations!
We've been very profitable all along these years, and was it at the expense of employees? No, that's the amazing thing about Lean is you get those business results through the development of the people, and we measure that by our employee engagement and recommendation rate, which is extremely high in company rankings. So yeah, I guess that's the ROI. Fast, profitable growth with high employee engagement.
Catherine, what would you like to add with that? Tough questions. What are we talking about here? What do those questions kind of look like?
The questions are about usually answering business challenges or managerial postures. The book, we wrote a book, I'm just showing it quickly, about those visits because I visited them and I was going through questions on business challenges, like how do you retain people? How do you develop them? How do you recruit them? How do you engage them? And then when we come to the Gemba, the questions are more about how are you going to derive a competitive advantage? Who is able to develop a knowledge that would give you a competitive advantage, and on what? Fabrice and Benoit, the two co-founders, are excellent now at going on, sorry for the term again, Gemba, because this is the Japanese term, but to go where the work is happening and asking questions about the product. I remember one circumstance where Benoit would come over to check on a project and people would start talking deliverables. And he said, stop, let's look at the product itself. And then we can discuss. So both Fabrice and Benoit have learned to raise those questions about the customer's eyes, the customer expectations, how are we doing on the lead time for the customer, how are we doing on the quality, are we able to solve our problems, do you need help? Those are the questions they ask repeatedly because they've learned from us guys and we've learned from our own senseis. It's always about business challenges and how to go about it. But of course, there is also a toolkit with just in time, making the life of people easier with what we call the Kanban, telling you which is the next task to be done. Or there is the Andon. Andon used to be the cord that the people on the production line would pull to get help if they had any problem with lead time or quality. And they're doing that in Theodore as well. They Andon each other. So it's really impressive to see how the same things that were designed for flow of pieces, mechanical pieces of parts, can actually work with data, flows of data, and systems instead of machines.
I love it. It's definitely like going from what we used to do back in the day to what we're doing today. It probably sounds like it could also be agile enough and process-wise of what our loved ones, our kids and generations that are come after us will do in the future.
It's funny to see how Lean, which is an old philosophy, if you want, or an old toolkit. I hate both terms, but I'm still struggling to find one that would merge the two concepts. It's an old one, but it's actually things that have worked throughout time. When you talk to people and make sure that they have proper tools to work, they will be far more engaged to serve the customer the next day because the tool is working. They know what to do next 20 minutes. They know how to do it, and if they don't, they have help. When you have that, when you manage to create this kind of environment, it's great. It's great. It works.
Yeah. So talk to me about, from your guys' experience, both of you, I mean, it's different. You guys have different experiences, but why do you think companies fail when they don't manage to engage their people?
It's a good question. I think that a company is an organization of people that has met a demand of the market. And so that actually, if you look at it in a short term, it can be achieved just by, some mix of genius, design, and luck. So the question is really when you want to scale it and when you want to maintain it long term and when you want to innovate on your market, then it, you know, if you rely on the mix of luck and you know, talent of the founders only, that's going to be very, very tough. You can't imagine a company like Amazon relying just on Jeff Bezos at that scale, even though Jeff Bezos has done some pretty incredible things when you look at the history. And I guess that's why you want something, a framework, a system that will leverage the creativity and the intelligence of everyone in the organization, as many people as you can. And I guess that's why we were so inspired and attracted to lean thinking, because lean thinking is really this idea that, you know, you can get, and the motto of Toyota is good thinking, good products. You will get better products, more value to your customer by engaging with everyone in the organization, with everyone's creativity, everyone's thinking. And the question is, how do you make that happen? And this is where Lean brings us this whole set of tools and complete system and mental models to achieve it. It's not easy. It's not easy for the leaders, as I was suggesting, because you have to look always at your problems. It's not easy for anyone actually in the organization, because the way you get that, you know, improvement of thinking in a way is definitely not by allowing yourself to be lazy, but it's really by using every problem as an opportunity of thinking harder. And yeah, that's hard because one, you need to look at problems, not comfortable, and two, you need to think harder, not comfortable. But the end result is, of course, much better work, much more meaningful, much more value, and yeah, much better for everyone, for the employees that can be proud of their work, and for the customers who get just better product and service. Yeah.
Catherine, any other thoughts on that question?
I read recently some statistics from, I think it was the Fast company. It dates back from 2017, so not recent, but why scale-ups or startups would fail. And I remember, of course, you may fail because your idea is not good and not the market won't receive it. But quite a number of reasons were also because of skills, teamwork. And this is really what Lean provides. We could add also being on the gemba, being there to check how the customer uses the products that you sell to them. If you understand what the customer constraints are, you'll define better products later on. If you see them use your product and have pains with it, you will much better understand what your product should be next time. And skills development comes from problem solving. They spent, as Fabrice said, they spend a lot of time facing problems and solving them. Again, this is not fun. Most companies would prefer to deliver fast and worry about quality later. This is not what Theodore is doing. But by doing that, by facing their problems and solving them, the skills are increasing. And when the skills are increasing and you take care of the customer, because they do call the customer and have a discussion face-to-face with them once a week on every project. So when you do sincerely care about the customers and develop skills, your next products will be better than the others.
That makes so much sense. So, question, thinking about this, right? Like the listeners out here, okay, this sounds good. I'm looking into this. Like, how long does it take to implement this? And I'm presuming it probably depends on the size of the business and how much time you get from people. But what's a normal, typical implementation of getting lean into the mindset of an organization?
I think the first answer is forever.
Okay,
say the
that's
same.
fair.
It never stops.
It never
You
stops.
can't be certified lean. That's not true. You learn all the time.
Yeah, and I guess that's you know, that comment is what makes Catherine a real lean sensei. She's not selling you a one-year transformation
it's true.
program.
I'm learning all the time.
No, and then Yeah, it's a very good question and a very hard one to answer. I would say, we saw value from day one. We're still learning 10 years later, even though we're probably now, so far along the journey that there's not that many people that have such an experience. Probably no one in the software industry that has as much experience as we have. But then that's why you do trips to Japan to visit to factories and realize there's like another 50 years ahead, probably. And I really think you can get some very interesting results in a matter of years, but definitely not, and definitely value from day one, but not like not anything transformational very quickly. It's a long journey.
You have to think about it like this. It's like trying while you scale up to retain the little craftsmanship that you had initially, where you knew your customers intimately, where you knew you were actually building your own product and you knew perfectly well what they wanted and you were learning all the time. And how do you keep this craftsmanship idea and concept, although you are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you get silos and chief technical officers and operation officers and HR and the purchasing and whatever you. So this is why it takes time, because it's a never-ending process. You have people that leave, new people come in, a boss leaves, and the whole thing collapses because behind the new boss comes and he doesn't really buy into it. So it's this craftsmanship idea. They call it in Japan monozukuri, coming back to the little guy in the garage who knew all his customers and knew all his tools and all the technical processes and how to do a good product. Keep this idea all the time.
That's a good mindset. I like that. So wrapping up, Fabrice, as a co-founder yourself, and you've been in the business for a while, what's a lesson learned that you've had to go through, tough lesson learned, that you wish you could, if you could port yourself back in time and say to your younger self, do this, don't do that, or think about it this way, or make this decision differently? What's a lesson learned that you think could help the audience with maybe some of the challenges they're dealing with today?
Well, there's so many things, so many mistakes you make along the journey. But one that frustrates me not to have understood deeply before, and unfortunately, it might sound cryptic unless you've gone through that journey, I guess. But I think when everything was going amazingly well, the market was booming, etc. And a lean sensei comes to you and is like, what is the value? What is the value? It's a question you kind of brush up at first, because you're like, look, my customers they're buying, they're happy. Why are you bothering me with the value? And luckily for us, we did start understanding what the question was about. But every year earlier we could have gotten into that learning journey would have been better, because of course what is the value is the thing that makes you retain your customers when things start getting tough and they have sort of smaller budgets and they have to make choices and they have to cut and make some cuts. And if you're the one partner that created value, then you're the one, of course, that gets selected to stay. And so my lesson is, it's not because the company is doing amazingly well that you should not prepare for the upcoming crisis. It's the very Game of Thrones mindset of winter's coming. So yeah, the lesson would be winter's coming.
All the time.
Therefore, think about the value that will make you more relevant than your competition when winter arrives.
That is really a good lesson learned. That's so true. It's hard when you like, in the consulting world, we always say feast or famine, right? Like, so it's like, just because you're feasting right now doesn't mean you're not going to go starving in a couple of weeks or months later on. So yeah, preparing yourself for that winter time frame. Well, any last words of wisdom or thoughts from either of you as we wrap up?
Maybe to bounce on what Fabrice just said, Toyota has taught us that the means, the way, how to go to somewhere is probably more important than the result itself. You may get the result by chance, but understanding how you got the result or you didn't get the result, and again, that doesn't worry them so much if you don't get the result, as long as you understand what happened. And this is really interesting. This is approximately what Fabrice was saying, but how do you get interested into how you get results and why is your customer buying and why is this employee staying or not staying? Understand the how before being happy with the results.
So that you can replicate it again. Well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed learning about the lean process and Fabrice, your experience with it, and that it's a continual journey. If anyone's out there listening that wants to learn more, pick up the book and read the details. Reach out to Catherine about the lean process called Learning to Scale at the Theodore group. And thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Great,
Thank you very much.